Hey, you are watching Half Asian Tarot Queen, and it is eclipse season. So it's actually, today is the day of the eclipse, though it might not be the day that this video gets posted, but I'm posting a lot of stuff for eclipse season, like, oh my gosh. So I just did the split, and we got the Two of Cups and the Ace of Cups. That's really good. Okay, so let's see. Under the Two of Cups, we got the Eight of Wands, and we got the Queen of Pentacles. Interesting. So there's a message coming in, or something's changing fast for this Queen of Pentacles. And it's really interesting, too, because there's been all these readings about this divine feminine energy and about Gaia, sort of like this elevation of divine feminine energy, because there's been this sort of era of like distorted masculine energy that's been like ruling the world, and that's sort of being challenged now. So it's just sort of like we're getting this message of love and soulmate connection for this divine feminine energy, which is really interesting. I'm gonna point to this divine feminine thread, because there's a thread about, I don't really necessarily do readings about divine feminine energy, but it's coming up a lot right now. And I think, and I've kind of said this in other readings too, like the whole everything with the war, it's just sort of like it's ultimately at the root a fight over the resources of the earth, of Gaia, of the Mother Earth, and like how that energy has been exploited, and now there's sort of a shift in the power structure around that. So I think that's a good message. So Ace of Cups, we have this Five of Pentacles energy, which came out in both of the solar eclipse readings that I've done so far. I'm going to do a link also to, or actually I'll do this one at the end, to the eclipse season, because there's a whole thread about eclipse season. But this is like this energy that's been coming up in all the eclipse season. Oh my gosh. So this sequence of these three cards has also come out in all of the eclipse readings, which is really weird. So, but we have this feeling of lack or abandonment, and we have, it's so weird how this has been happening. But this opportunity that's coming online, and this truth that's coming online, that's maybe allowing someone to move past this energy. So if you look at the solar eclipse reading, there's it's called You May Be a Lucky Star. And it's all about this person who's been like totally neglected, taken for granted, like people not seeing their gifts, but it's like they get this big break. It's so crazy that there's these like planes flying overhead as I'm saying this, because like if you watch, oh my gosh, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like two fighter planes flying in formation and leaving a trail of smoke behind them. They're just like, they're like, pay attention to what I'm saying right now, because, so for me, like when that happens, because my dad was like a pilot, and he was like a really good pilot. He was like a hotshot pilot, so like whenever a plane flies over, it's like kind of like a confirmation for my dad, a plane or a helicopter, or sometimes it's birds. But it's so weird, because it's just like this person has kind of like been beaten down and oppressed, and like people haven't seen their gifts, but in the eclipse reading, it's like suddenly it's like they get their big break, and they find their tribe of people who recognize, who get it, that they have this special gift, and so they get elevated, so this speaks to like this opportunity happening and this truth coming out that's maybe going to liberate someone from this situation. But all of this happens under this love, and underneath it we have this things coming into balance. So love's coming to someone in this reading. And there's like messages coming in, and it seems like it's kind of going towards this Queen of Pentacles, who's like maybe been just like working hard and kind of doing her own thing, you know, but like she's moving on from a bad situation, like, and maybe like being like liberated. Okay, I'm gonna go to the Priestess of Light. This is like a really good reading so far. Let's see what we get with the Priestess of Light. So crazy. The thing about the planes, like, it seems like they're coming back around again. It's so wild. Okay, all right, so this came out. Oh my gosh. Okay, oh my gosh. Okay, so we have tenderness, true love and compassion. And the thing that I like love about this, I mean, this is like totally like a poster child like card for like, you know, this vegan. It's like she cares about the animals or whatever. And it's so crazy because like, I mean, like, I'm a vegan cheesemaker, so I'm like, oh, you know, but this like totally matches. And it's sensuality, feminine wisdom, and passion. So again, like there's this whole thing about honoring feminine energy that's coming through in this reading, which is like, okay, so then, and then when I split the deck on the mystical shaman, we got the arrow and we got the sorcerer. So this is a card. It's like, it's about distorted energy, and it's like when you have like this distortion, it's like you don't necessarily see the world as it is, and so you kind of like inflict pain on people around you. So for example, like a really good example of this is like Vladimir Putin, you know, like he's been elevated in this sort of bubble, you know, because he's been in power for so long that nobody's gonna like tell him the way things really are. They only like tell him what he wants to hear, you know. So he's living in this distorted bubble, and so for this reason he's justified for himself, like, I'm gonna start this war because I'm gonna take out all these Nazis, and like he's invading this country and the president is Jewish, like, and the whole thing is just like he's obviously living in this bubble of distortion, you know. And so that's kind of like what this energy represents, you know. It's like, it's kind of like Darth Vader, you know. But we have this arrow, and the arrow is like all about sort of like when you are in alignment with all the forces of the universe, when you release your arrow, and this came out in another eclipse reading too, and send it into the world, like it's going to hit its mark. So it's kind of like, the thing that's coming to me with this is sort of like this David and Goliath thing, where it's just sort of like David, he's like in alignment with the highest good, you know. So it's like, even though all he has is a slingshot and a rock, like he slings it and he takes out Goliath, this giant, you know. And that's kind of like what's happening with Ukraine, you know. It's like they're just this little country and they have very limited resources, and we have like the biggest, literally the biggest country in the world, and Darth Vader, like they're coming out and they're like trying to like take them out, you know. But like they have the support of all the world behind them, you know, because they're just, they don't deserve it, and they're just telling the truth, you know. And so this is like what's going to help them to heal from this distortion, because that's kind of what the jaguar does. Like the jaguar is in command of the darkness and the light. They've like healed all of these distortions, and so they're in command of their energy, and that's what allows them to sort of like rise above the darkness. So, wow, this is really an interesting, an interesting reading. Okay, I'm gonna go to the Light Seers deck now, and when I did the split, I got the Chariot and I got the High Priestess. So again, this is like this divine, like the High Priestess is this very intuitive feminine energy, and like that energy is sort of like seizing the reins of a situation. So it's like there's definitely this theme of this empowerment of this feminine energy. This wheel just came out, so like some situation is changing. There's a situation of distortion. There was a thing too about, I forget what reading it was, but it was talking about like having to pop the bubble on the distortion. And so like this thing that just came to me now is like the arrow. Like that's the thing. The arrow is coming right towards this distortion. It's going to pop it, you know, it's, and like having to like sort of accept the truth as it is, you know. Okay, wow, this looks super climactic. All right, okay, so at the bottom we have the Nine of Swords. So there's like all this fear and anxiety. It's like there's this one white bird and there's all these black birds, but the white bird is like pushing them back, you know, even though there's only one of them, you know. And it's like almost like this bird is like an angelic sort of bird, like there's kind of like creating this force field, and this person is like suffering, you know, under the weight of this distortion, you know. But things are changing and we're going towards happiness and fulfillment. We're going towards the 10 of Cups, you know. But we have this devil here, this totally toxic energy, and we have the Knight of Cups after that. So it's like almost like this, it's like this devil is like reaching out for help almost, and there's like this peace offering that's being offered to this devil that's like, it's like almost like this devil is like drowning in toxicity, and they're like reaching out for help, and this peace offering is being offered to this devil, because underlying all of this there's this, it's like this one lone bird is fighting off all this toxic energy, this angelic bird. And what that just made me think of, I saw this thing in the internet this morning, and they were talking about the Ghost of Kiev. And it's like this fighter pilot, this Ukrainian fighter pilot, and he ended up being killed, you know, but he like took out 40 Russian jets, you know, this one guy, and he ended up being killed in combat. But like, so now he's like the Ghost of Kiev, and he's like pushing back all this darkness, you know, like he's super powerful from the other side. Yeah, the Ghost of Kiev. Underneath him we have the Chariot. So I don't really know where that's coming from, but there's like a lot going on all over the place. It's like super chaotic, because we have this like theme of this elevation and this love coming towards this divine feminine energy, but it's like almost like we have to conquer this distortion in order for that to happen, you know. And it's like, what do we do with this toxic energy? Like, it's like, do we like try to appease this toxic energy, or do we try to like push it back? Like, I think there's like sort of this back and forth, because at first it's like with Vladimir Putin, it's like, well, don't upset him, you know, because we don't want to escalate it. But then he keeps escalating, you know, and things keep getting worse. And so then it's like, well, then now we're going to try to defeat him, and we're going to try to push him back. And it's like almost like there's sort of like both things happening, and there's like this indecision about it, because it's like not super clear like what's the best way to handle the situation, you know. But things are in flux, things are changing, and right now in this moment it's like a little bit, it's kind of chaotic. Okay, I'm gonna go to the intuitive night goddess and pick a couple things, and we'll see, because this reading is kind of like this crazy, like, whirlwind of chaos. Oh my gosh. That came out earlier when I was like shuffling the cards right before, you know, just before the reading. Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we have Temperance. So like things are being brought back into balance. We're manifesting that, you know, this is like alchemy. There's like a lot of emotion being released. There's like chaos everywhere, but we have Justice, the Ten of Cups, and the Five of Swords. So this, you know, it speaks to there being winners and losers. So that kind of makes sense, because there's like all this chaos, you know. On one side there's like this love and this, you know, but then on the other side we're like fighting back this, and we have this toxic energy that's sort of like drowning and like reaching out for help, you know. So it's just sort of like justice is happening, but there's winners and losers, and this is kind of the moment of like the moment of truth, you know, when all this is like being challenged and it's not really clear exactly, like it's like both things are happening at the same time. So it's just like it's like messy, you know. But you can see, you know, like this person is expecting the worst, you know, because they see all that, but they don't see this angel coming in, this angelic bird, you know, because their eyes are closed and they're like, you know, but it actually might not turn out how it looks. That's kind of how I'm getting it. It's like there's actually the ending, there's going to maybe be a surprise good ending, but you might not be able to see that right now. Okay, so at the bottom we have patience, we have will, and we have boundaries. So it's like stick to your guns and be patient, because right now everything's like in flux and it's super chaotic and it's not really clear what's going on. So it's important to have boundaries around yourself, boundaries to maintain inner peace, to protect your energy, and, you know, focus on yourself and your own, you know, good stuff, because there's this battle happening and right now it's super chaotic, you know, but eventually, like, love is going to win out, you know. Like this devil is kind of, you know, devil's going down. Like they're like grasping for straws at this point, you know, but it's still kind of in process. So it's like, it's like hang on tight. It's like it's gonna be a wild ride, like for sure. But you've got the Ghost of Kiev like fighting for you, and good's gonna win out in the end. But you know, there's some powerfully toxic energies here that have to be worked through. So keep the faith. Check in soon with more updates.